Welcome to Naked History. You're listening to Unearthed. La Venta, Mexico. A huge pyramid rises from the jungle. Built by a pioneering civilization that vanished 2,500 years ago. This was once the capital of a mysterious ancient people, the Olmec.
People have been living throughout the jungle. And then the Olmec came and built cities like nothing else that has been seen on the planet at the time.
Who were the Olmec? Why did they carve these strange stone statues? And what drove them to build the first cities in North America?
The remarkable artifacts found here are revealing of an incredible people.
Did the Olmec invent Mesoamerica's first writing and a belief in the afterlife? Without the achievements of the Olmec, would the great civilizations that came after them have even existed?
This is the spark that transforms Mesoamerica, the revolution that begins with the Olmec.
To unearth the truth about this mysterious people, we'll tear away the jungle, uncover hidden treasures, and blow apart their capital's ancient structures to reveal why civilization in North America evolved here. On the Mexican Gulf Coast lies one of the most mysterious ancient cities of the Americas, La Venta. Today, jungle covers most of this site. But at its peak, 3,000 years ago, this was a thriving metropolis built almost entirely from mud. Thousands of years before the ancient Maya and Aztec built cities in North America, the Olmec created the first civilization here. This jungle landscape was once covered with millions of tons of earthen mounds. Scores of basalt columns marked out a ceremonial core. A huge 100-foot-high mound dominated the mud city that stretched for 200 acres, with thousands of thatched homes. Who were the ancient Olmec? And why were they the first ever to build a true city here? Archaeologist Carl Wendt is on a hunt for answers.
What were they doing to allow them to transform this tropical, lowland, hot, humid area into one of the most incredible civilizations at the time?
But he faces a huge obstacle. La Venta's secrets lie buried under thick jungle and 3,000 years of soil deposits. But clues do exist, giant ones, that could finally reveal who the Olmec really were. Buried beneath the ground at the heart of the city, archaeologists unearthed an enormous stone head, entirely carved from a single boulder. Nearby, they discovered two more. Each statue stands over 7 feet high, weighs up to 20 tons, and wears the same mysterious headgear. Who are these people? Were they gods? Or the masterminds behind Mesoamerica's first civilization?
Wow, when you walk up to these things, it's right there in your face. They're massive. You can stare right into their eyes, and I mean, you can really tell that this was an individual, this was a person.
Carl believes the material the heads are made from is a clue to revealing their identities. They're all basalt, a type of rock not found at La Venta.
Why would they carve this stone? You can't find this stuff anywhere around here. Bringing this stuff in for a particular reason, this was important. And where they actually got this rock from is going to tell us a lot.
To investigate where the Olmec sourced the stone, Carl travels 60 miles north of Venta into the Tuxtla Mountains. Today, it's a short ride on a highway. But for the Olmec, it was a 3-day uphill hike.
Wow, that's hot, man.
Here, giant basalt boulders cover a vast area. Carl scours the site for proof Venta's heads came from this spot. Pushing deeper into the jungle, he makes an extraordinary discovery.
Oh man, I've never seen anything like this before. This is one of a kind. This is a preform of an Olmec colossal head. They would have carved the headdress, then you would come down to the face, to the nose. And finally the mouth. This is the exact same size as some of the colossal heads at Venta. I mean, it's a dead ringer. With a few more weeks' work, this stone could have ended up at Venta.
Carl thinks how this rock was formed is a clue to the identity of the carved faces. Basalt is the product of volcanic eruptions, a natural event the Olmec considered the work of the gods.
Mountains and volcanoes especially are significant in Olmec religion. And for these boulders then to be thrown out of the volcano and strewn throughout this area, the material itself would have had symbolic religious significance. And the people whose images were carved into these monuments, they were aligning themselves with the deities.
Carl believes only Venta's elite could have been given this honor.
These are almost certainly the faces of the priest kings, the leaders of the site of Venta.
Incredibly, there is evidence these people could have been the first royal family in the Americas.
While the faces are different, we have a certain template that all these heads follow. The ear spools, the headdress, the helmet. And for the similarities of design, it could be that these individuals were related and represent not just a succession of rulers, but possibly the first dynasty.
Carving and transporting such huge stones was a massive undertaking. Dragging them through 60 miles of dense jungle would have been impossible. So how did the Olmec do it? Could a local natural resource provide a clue? Carl examines pieces of ancient bitumen, excavated from the banks of rivers that led to Venta. He believes they're evidence the Olmec floated the giant heads downriver to their city.
This could be the missing link to how the Olmec transported their colossal heads. What's really neat about this one here is that you can see actual little striation marks that were formed as it was affixed to a piece of wood.
Carl thinks the bitumen is all that remains of a huge ancient raft.
By using this material to fill in the gaps of their watercraft, say rafts, all sealed with this bitumen, that would have allowed them then to drag the colossal heads onto these rafts and transport them via water to the site of Venta.
3,000 years ago, 60 miles of thick jungle and winding rivers stood between the basalt boulder fields and Venta. Archaeologists believe that the Olmec used trees and vines to construct sledges to transport the giant rocks. A huge workforce hauled each sledge along wooden rollers to a nearby river and onto bitumen-sealed rafts to float the head downstream. They skillfully navigated the coast before dragging the stones into position at Venta. Centuries before the Maya and Aztec civilizations, the people of Venta exploited natural resources to immortalize their ruling dynasty in sacred stone. But what was this jungle city where the heads were being taken? And why was the first pyramid in North America built here.
The Pyramid of La Venta is full of mysteries, and if you know where to look, you will find its purpose.
Archaeologist Rebecca Gonzalez Locke and her team have unearthed giant limestone blocks here. They form a strange ring around the pyramid, part of what Rebecca thinks is an intricate hidden design.
Our excavations have revealed hundreds of limestone slabs embedded into the clay surface. You can just imagine the weight they carry.
Rebecca believes exposing the pyramid's original design can reveal why the Olmec built it. Her team strips back the thick vegetation.
So we're standing on a ridge which we're clearing so that it reveals the ravines and the ridges.
Rebecca launches a drone to investigate the feature from a more revealing angle.
So you can very clearly see the ravines. It is obviously an architectural feature, and it goes from the top to the bottom in a straight line.
Rebecca surveys the site. She combines her data with existing topographical information to create a relief map of the entire pyramid.
A series of ridges and ravines that circle around it. Here are probably corners, and the ravines are probably staircases.
The data reveals an elaborate ancient Olmec design. Concealed under the soil is the outline of what was the pyramid's true shape. The ridges, ravines, and inset limestone blocks hint that it once had a much more complex structure. An extraordinary geometric shape with 4 huge staircases. And set into a massive earthen platform once stood a line of ceremonial stones. It's a 200,000-ton engineering marvel. But why did the Olmec build it? And what was it for?
When the elites needed to talk to the general population, they probably climbed up these staircases to address them from the summit of the pyramid. You can imagine a large gathering of people in this plaza. For people coming from elsewhere, it would have totally blown them away. It transmits power, it transmits status, it transmits strength.
But La Venta's statement of power has one big flaw. It is made from mud. How did its engineers stop such a huge, heavy pile of dirt from collapsing under its own weight? A clue lies in La Venta's archaeological vaults. Soil samples taken from deep inside the pyramid.
They made a very sophisticated combination of materials. So the main component is clay, but they also use sand, which has a function a bit like temper that avoids making it crack, and it holds together very plastic, but still very strong.
As a building material, dense clay sets hard, but it's brittle and crumbles easily. This is because when clay dries, the water particles trapped inside evaporate. The clay shrinks and splits. Mixing sand into the clay gives it added support. So now, when the clay dries, it shrinks less, preventing cracking. By pounding this mixture into layers, the Olmec shaped a lasting monument at the heart of La Venta. The first pyramid in North America was the focus of this Olmec metropolis. Home to tens of thousands of people, this was the first planned city in Mesoamerica. But the mighty pyramid is not the only mystery the Olmec left behind. They laid this strange stone structure in a hole in the ground and buried it completely. What was this for? And will the answer reveal what drove the Olmec to build La Venta here in the first place? Archaeologist Carl Wendt hunts for answers.
For tens of thousands of years, people have been living here scattered throughout the jungle, and then the Olmec came and changed everything. They built cities out of mud, like nothing else that has been seen on the planet at the time.
He believes a unique find from beneath La Venta could be a clue to why this site was chosen.
When archaeologists discovered this, there wasn't anything like this in the archaeological record in the entire world.
Hidden 13 feet beneath the ground, archaeologists unearthed a strange stack of stones made from 28 layers of precious serpentine slabs. On top of this platform, a mosaic of 485 polished rocks arranged into a cryptic pattern. And buried on the other side of the plaza, a second identical mosaic. Incredibly, both were covered up as soon as they were finished. Could the reason the Olmec buried all these extraordinary artworks reveal why civilization took off here at La Venta?
Most archaeologists, we thought that this was a mask. But as you look at it, it's not that intuitive. This could be various layers with organic elements at the top. This could be plants sprouting. These could be roots in the ground. But what's really puzzling is why they have brought in thousands of tons of stone from hundreds of miles away and buried it for no one to see.
Decoding the mosaic's pattern could shed light on the mystery. But what does this strange design represent? Could the answer lie in the remains of another mysterious Olmec settlement just 7 miles upriver from La Venta? The river cuts into the mud banks here, revealing traces of life 3,000 years ago. One find stands out: an ancient Olmec kitchen tool that could help explain the mosaic's design.
This is an actual Olmec grinding stone, and you can see by the shape of it, they actually ground seeds here on the surface.
Carl believes the plant they processed with these grinding stones is a clue to decoding the mosaic. Corn, known as maize here in Mexico.
So this is the maize that the people use today, and they used to use in the past in Olmec times for thousands of years. But we found remnants of these particular seeds, these maize seeds, in our excavations under the ground, dating to the Olmec period.
Carl thinks corn became the most important food source for the Olmec. Important enough to be honored on the buried mosaic. He thinks the plant-like shapes on its top layer depict this vital crop.
This maize here with the leaves is very similar to what we see on the mosaic at La Venta.
Carl's convinced the mosaic's maize symbolism means they were buried as offerings to a fertility god.
Given that how important the environment was to the Olmec, we start to understand why they would bury the mosaic. So now the mosaic seems to me as sort of a debt of gratitude or a veneration to the earth god.
But the use of so much precious stone suggests these mosaics are no ordinary religious offering. It's evidence the Olmec knew their success depended on their environment. La Venta had it all: fertile soils for growing crops, rich fish stocks, and forests for sourcing building materials. Because the area was packed with so many resources, fewer people were needed to produce food to feed the city. For the first time, people could do new jobs, manufacturing, building, and trading. Armed with new skills, the Olmec built a thriving metropolis to support their growing population. La Venta became Mexico's very own cradle of civilization.
Living in this Garden of Eden, they would have been devoted to the land. They captured and harnessed their environment in ways never before done.
This huge offering reveals why the Olmec chose La Venta to revolutionize North American civilization. But they could be responsible for even more incredible innovations. The oldest tomb in Mesoamerica could reveal the Olmec as the creators of a pioneering concept of the afterlife. Did their legacy lay the foundation for some of the greatest civilizations the world has ever known? Deep beneath the ground at La Venta, archaeologists unearthed a massive stone tomb. 30 basalt columns formed the walls, and 9 more made a roof. Inside, they found no skeletons, just beautiful jewelry and stone carvings. Among the hall, one find stood out: a rare jade figurine wearing a gleaming iron mirror. And in nearby burials, archaeologists found 7 more polished reflective stones. Why were mirrors buried under the ground? And what did they represent for the Olmec? The answers could lie with incredible finds discovered at another Olmec burial site. At El Manatí, 70 miles southwest of La Venta, experts have unearthed carved wooden heads and the bones of an infant. Ponciano Ortiz leads the excavation. He believes the reason why these artifacts survived is the clue to solving the mystery of the mirrors. These precious items weren't buried in the ground. They were placed into an ancient lake. La Venta is built on high ground. This means the bones found in the tomb here were buried in earth that contains pockets of air. Exposed to oxygen, they decomposed over time. But conditions at El Manatí are different. A natural spring keeps soils below the ground submerged in water. So when the Olmec threw bodies and organic artifacts into the spring, they sank into the mud and were sealed off from the air. With no oxygen to decompose the organic items, they stayed preserved for millennia. Why did the ancient Olmec put human remains into water? It seems they believed what lay beneath the water's reflective surface was a different world, one that could only be accessed in death. Ponciano thinks the ancient pool at El Manatí symbolized an entrance into this afterlife, just like the mirrors found among burials at La Venta. If the Olmec believed it was possible to transition magically between this world and the next, then they were the first people in Mesoamerica to develop the revolutionary idea that life exists after death. The evidence indicates that the ancient people who built this continent's first cities also forged a religion here. Led by mighty priest kings, they worshipped gods of the earth and created a concept of the afterlife. For decades, archaeologists believe the Olmec did all this without a written language. But a mysterious object could now turn that theory on its head. Over 100 miles from La Venta, archaeologists unearthed half of a 3-ton stone. Chiseled into it is a strange design. When investigators found the missing half 30 years later, the complete stone reveals the carving is an elaborate mask. But then they spotted a puzzling inscription on the stone's other side, a curious code of symbols, lines, and dots. Did the people who carved this stone invent writing in the Americas? Or does a new discovery prove it started centuries earlier at Venta? Archaeologists excavating an ancient suburb of the city have discovered a strange clay object. 600 years older than the giant split stone. It's a cylindrical seal, an ancient Olmec printing device. Is the pattern it prints just decoration? Or incredibly, could this be North America's first ever written message? And what would decoding it reveal? Unfortunately, the seal is too fragile to test. Dipping it in ink could damage it beyond repair. So Christopher von Nage and a team from Florida State University 3D print an exact replica. Christopher dips the seal in ink and rolls it on his skin, just as the Olmec would have done. It reveals a bizarre design. But is it writing?
Coming out of the bird's beak are two speech scrolls, which are kind of like Mesoamerican versions of the speech bubble we see in modern cartoons. At the end of which we have two sets of signs. The bird is actually speaking, and we believe that the signs here are written speech, writing.
If this is a written message, what does it say? Christopher believes decoding it could reveal a rare glimpse into life at Venta 2,500 years ago. He compares the characters with their closest match: ancient Mayan script.
What's interesting is that there's a similarity between the cylinder with this U-shaped element that almost looks like a mouth and the Maya symbol, where you have something similar going on. You have a little face with a U for a mouth and dots for eyes. The central part of the Olmec symbol is an early version of the Maya word for king or lord.
The message on the seal reveals a long-lost vision of royal life at Venta.
A person in a ceremony could have a name of a king from Venta inked on themselves. And then, therefore, the cylinder seal could record some event related to his reign, an accession to the throne. It could mark a birth. It could mark a victory in a military battle.
But Christopher thinks the seal is also proof the Olmec developed North America's first calendar. Dots signify the number 3 in Mayan. Similar dots appear on the split stone carved 300 years later. Like Maya kings, Olmec rulers were named after the day on which they were born. So combining a number with a day means the Olmec were the first civilization in the Americas to record time.
This isn't just among the earliest evidence for writing in Mesoamerica. This is the earliest evidence for a date in Mesoamerica.
What started with simple dots on the seal at Venta evolved into a system that recorded long stretches of time. Learning from the Olmec, the carvers of the split stone recorded a date, September 3rd, 31 BC. The Maya developed the system into calendars to track religious days, the solar year, and Maya history. They divided time into eras. The last of these ended on December 23, 2012, which some believed would mark the end of the world. For Christopher, the cylinder seal is proof that writing in the Americas began with the civilization at Venta.
This is the spark that transforms Mesoamerica, the revolution that begins with the Olmec.
But 600 years after North America's first planned city was founded, traces of Olmec life at Venta suddenly disappear. Why was this city abandoned? And did Venta's legacy draw the blueprint for all later civilizations in the Americas? Rebecca Gonzalez Locke is on a quest to solve this mystery. She believes a nearby river is a vital clue.
Rivers can change courses, and through thousands of years, the landscape changes very fast.
Rebecca thinks the Olmec's intensive farming clogged the water with silt. The river changed course away from La Venta. This triggered devastating consequences for the city.
The river to the north silted in and ceased to function as a transportation venue and for fish and foods. In the case of La Venta, you could see that people abandoned the habitation of the sites on the riverside.
Food production dwindled as people left the fields. Faced with starvation, La Venta's citizens abandoned their city. Olmec civilization was finished. But does their story end there? It's possible key elements of Olmec civilization lived on for thousands of years. Teotihuacan in central Mexico, Mesoamerica's mightiest city. It lasted for 1,700 years before it fell to the Spanish conquistadors. But would this place even exist if it weren't for the Olmec? Rebecca explores the city's massive structures for clues.
This ancient city is the home to some of the largest pyramids of the world, which share masonry features that were determined 1,000 years earlier in La Venta with the step platforms and the central staircase.
At Teotihuacan, ancient engineers supersized La Venta's mud pyramid design in stone.
It's incredible to think that all this started in La Venta 1,000 years earlier. La Venta was such an impressive city for its time that the idea of the planned city persisted through generations.
The Olmec's pioneering innovations became the blueprint for this metropolis. And their influence runs deeper still. Everywhere Rebecca looks at Teotihuacan, there are echoes of the Olmec. Ancient paintings of portal mirrors, like the ones unearthed at La Venta. And images of corn, similar to those the Olmec pictured on their mosaic offerings. Rebecca believes this is evidence the culture the Olmec invented influenced Mesoamerica for millennia.
At La Venta, the Olmec created monumental architecture, spectacular arts, and the first planned city. It represents a transformation in a way of life in ancient Mexico. The Olmec legacy inspired millions of people through thousands of years.
The Olmec at La Venta were true pioneers, the first people in North America to build cities. Their ideas laid the foundations for civilizations like the Maya and Aztec.
The Olmec at La Venta were central in the story of kings, central in ritual, in a way that is revolutionary and absolutely different than what came before.
The Olmec should be remembered for their sophistication. They moved hundreds of tons of stone through tropical rainforest. They built cities out of mud. They developed a sophisticated religion and symbol system. The more we learn about the Olmec, the more we're learning about the foundations of Mesoamerican society.
A mud metropolis, home to tens of thousands of people, ruled by America's first royal dynasty, who presided over a new revolutionary religion. The Olmec built the first pyramids here for spectacular ceremonies and wrote the rules for Mesoamerica.
You've been listening to Naked History. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to leave a comment below, and be sure to follow Naked History for a brand new episode every week. Naked History is brought to you by Windfall Films.